Ahoy, mateys! Welcome to Podcasts of the Caribbean, a podcast covering the world of Pirates of the Caribbean, from the theme parks to the movies and everything in between. My name is Justin Helmer, and I will be your host on this voyage through the Caribbean. It'd be too late to alter course now, mateys. Hello, and welcome back to Podcasts of the Caribbean. This is a very exciting episode today, because we're going to be talking about the very first fully themed Pirates of the Caribbean land that doesn't exist in any Disney park except Shanghai Disneyland. So Treasure Cove opened at Shanghai Disneyland, of course. It opened with the rest of the park when the park opened on June 16th, 2016. And it's been there ever since. And this is home to probably the coolest version, honestly, of Pirates of the Caribbean, which is the Battle for the Sunken Treasure version of the attraction, which only exists at Shanghai Disneyland. It's a completely different version of the ride, themed entirely to the movies, and the rest of this land is completely themed to the movies as well. There's a stunt show, as I mentioned before, the Pirates of the Caribbean new version of the ride. There's a kid's playground on a shipwreck. There's an explorable pirate ship. There's like a bunch of different restaurants you can go to, gift shop, all that kind of stuff. It's very, very cool. So we're going to do a deep dive on everything you can find in Treasure Cove today. And I'll also say this is also the final episode of Season 2 of the podcast. So we'll be taking a brief hiatus after this episode, and we'll be coming back later to talk about On Stranger Tides and Dead Men Tell No Tales. So stay tuned for those episodes coming soon. But I hope you all enjoy this episode, because we're going to take a deep dive throughout this entire land. And we're going to start right at the beginning of the right side. So we're going to start, instead of going left to right, we're going to go right to left. We're going off a map of the land from Shanghai Disneyland. So we're starting on the right side. It's kind of in the back of the park. So if you come up to where it is, you can go either left or right around this kind of lake. And Treasure Cove is in the back, on the back side of this lake. So you can go left and come around that way. You can go right and come around that way. If you go left first, you'll come up to Battle for the Sunken Treasure. If you go right, you'll head up to Tortuga Treats, which is what we'll cover first, because we're going to go right to left. We're going to be ending with Battle for the Sunken Treasure. So, this, of course, is a theme park land, and there is a map we're going off of here, but there is actually an in-universe map that actually is in Treasure Cove. When you actually walk through the land, you can actually see this map, which is completely in-universe. Everything actually themed to, like, the Pirates of the Caribbean world. So let's quickly go through this actual map here, as I have it up on my screen. So this also is kind of sort of linked with Adventure Isle, which is Shanghai Disneyland's version of Adventureland. So at the front side of the lake that I was mentioning, where Treasure Cove is in the back, that's kind of the edge of Adventure Isle. So there is an Explorer Canoes attraction in Adventure Isle that you can go on, which goes around this lake that Treasure Cove sits on. So the Explorer Canoes ride is somewhat kind of linked to Treasure Cove, and it's even on this in-universe map of Treasure Cove. It's at the bottom here where it says Bill Drap Bill's Explorer Canoes. So it kind of has that in here as well. But this map is really cool. It's completely like themed to, like, everything is, it's really, really cool. So like everything that we're going to talk about is actually on this map. So everything you can find in the land is on this map. So you have Buccaneer Beach. There's all actually really cool names on this. There's a Pygmy Village here on the right side. Then we have, of course, Tortuga Treats, which is what we'll be starting with. There's a blacksmith. There's all this cool stuff on here. From this map, we can see that Treasure Cove sits between the Caribbean and the Atlantic. So on this map, the Caribbean is on the left side and the Atlantic is on the right side. So it's somewhere in between those two seas, wherever that would really be located in universe. But As I said, we have Tortuga Treats on here. We have Don Diego's El Teatro Fandango, which is where the stunt show takes place. Then we come into the kind of town square village, which is called Landlubber's Landing. This is where the Siren's Revenge is located, as well as Pintel and Rigetti's Grub to Grab and Barbossa's Bounty. In the middle there, we have Doubloon Market, which is the gift shop, which is somewhat linked to the big fort, which is called Fort Snobbish. And we also have Snack and Kraken on this map as well. Also part of the fort is the gatehouse, where you enter in to go on to battle for the Sunken Treasure. And we also have Shipwreck Shore on this map as well. And then as you continue to go along that way, we have the kind of Cove Lookout, which is also an area you can go to in the actual park. And that's pretty much everything. There's some cool other little like areas that are on this map. Like in the very back, there's the Caves of Misfortune, all things like that. But those aren't actually in the park. They're just put on this map. But it's a really cool map. It's cool. It's all in universe, and you can actually see this in the park. So I think it's very cool. But let's actually go into the actual park now and start at our first stop, which is Tortuga Treats. Now, Tortuga Treats is a quick service dining location. It's like a stall. If you've been to a Disney park before, you probably will understand more of the terms I'll be using in this episode. But Tortuga Treats is kind of like a food stall. You walk up to the window, you get the food from the window and stuff like that. So it's not an actual restaurant. It's kind of just out in the open. But there isn't too much to talk about here. It's mainly just a little shack on the side here called Tortuga Treats. The theming is really well done, and it kind of serves as a bit of a bridge from Adventure Isle to Treasure Cove, because some of the actual theming on here is kind of a bit more Adventurelandy, but nice little bridge to kind of move us into Treasure Cove. But we'll move past Tortuga Treats. We're going to move into our first real attraction, and that is the Eye of the Storm, Captain Jack's Stunt Spectacular. So this is the stunt show I was talking about before. This is a very crazy stunt show, but we're going to get into that right now because that's our first big attraction. So let's go right into it. I should also preface that most of everything in Treasure Cove, since it is in Shanghai, it's all in Chinese, since Disney, of course, knows that people are going to be traveling outside of China to get here. There is some stuff that is in English, but most of the attractions, the actual dialogue in the attractions, the actors in the stunt show, they are Chinese and they are speaking Chinese. So since I do not speak Chinese, I won't really be, reciting the dialogue and everything like that. So we're kind of just going to go in and I'll describe what is going on, just because, I can't really understand what they're saying because I don't understand Chinese. If I ever do want to go to this park one day, I will try to actually learn some Chinese so I can actually understand what they're saying. But, of course, the stunt show takes place in what I just said was Don Diego, who is the owner of this place in universe. It's the El Teatro Fandango, which is the actual name of the theater, and this is kind of off to the right side of Treasure Cove, so like right at the start. It's a very, very cool outside facade of this as well. But we go inside and you wait inside the lobby of the theater, and some pirates come out and greet everyone kind of in the lobby of the theater. Some pirates come out and they do a pre-show. After this short pre-show, they actually let you into the actual theater. You sit down and the actual stunt show begins. So the beginning here has some pirates who come out and they get the crowd riled up and everything like that. And we have this guy who comes out. He's I think this guy is actually Don Diego. I think, maybe, I'm not too sure. But he looks like he's the owner, or at least, the what I'm getting from, things I can't really understand. I think he is Don Diego. But he comes out, welcomes everybody, and they kind of, prepare everything for this show. So they bring up all these kind of sets and everything, and the rest of the cast for this show comes out. And we also have this lady who comes out wearing this cool kind of mermaid dress outfit thing with the tail on the back, which is kind of cool. This other guy who comes out, he's playing a Navy commander, comes out with the costume on, but he also has that thing where, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like that thing where you can put on where you have like multiple bodies attached and you can move the rods and they move their like feet and legs. I don't know what that's called, but he has that kind of thing, if you know what I'm talking about. But once they come out, this other person comes out, who is kind of in this little like pirate ship, like kind of like costume thing where you kind of put it over top of your legs. But it's very obvious at this point, or at least the whole point of this show is that they are presenting a show that is based on Jack Sparrow. And this guy who just came out is supposed to be playing Jack Sparrow in this show. So he's very flamboyant. He's got this very hot pink shirt on, like very kind of like flamboyant version of Jack Sparrow. But he comes out and everything. But then, out of nowhere, who would expect, the real Jack Sparrow comes flying in on a rope and enters the theater and kind of interrupts the entire show. So, of course, this whole show is supposed to be a show based on Jack Sparrow, and then they weren't, of course, expecting the real Jack Sparrow to come in. But he comes in, and we had this whole conversation with these pirates who were presenting the show. But the lady who is wearing that mermaid costume, she rips off the dress and reveals that she is actually a pirate too. I wish I knew these characters' names, but unfortunately not. But she defeats these pirates for some reason, and she also uses a whip, which is kind of cool. You don't see pirates using whips that often, but pretty neat. But Jack Sparrow is here. These pirates, they're kind of ganging up on Jack, so they tie him up to this rope and they send him flying across the room, I guess almost humiliating him. That's kind of what it seems like. But there's this cool move here where Jack kind of like, when he's on his way back down to the ground, he smashes into these three pirates and knocks them down, which I think is pretty cool. But then out of the blue, some actual Navy soldiers come in and pretty much shut the whole show down because they're, of course, looking for Jack Sparrow, the real Jack Sparrow. And this Navy commander, again, the real Navy commander, comes in, draws his sword, and kind of captures Jack and leads him away. Of course, all the pirates who were putting on this show are pretty angry now. They've been interrupted twice by Jack and the actual Navy. Jack is taken away, and the Navy commander orders his men to fire the cannons, and they blow the theater pretty much to smithereens. So there was this cool kind of like fake backdrop before that says El Teatro Fandango on it. But once they fire the cannons, everything, the lights go out, all fades to black, and once the lights come back on, everything switches up because the effect is that they pull up that screen and there's this really cool set that has just been revealed with the wall like blown to bits, and there's all kinds of rigging and things falling down, which is really cool reveal. But of course it's made to be like the cannons kind of blew the entire theater open, so it's a really cool reveal. But we're pretty much halfway through this stunt show, and stunts haven't really happened yet. It's been a lot of just kind of dialogue, which I can't understand. But Jack is brought up to this Navy commander one more time. They're about to hang him, and this lady pirate ends up trying to save Jack, but does not work too well. But after kind of rallying the rest of the pirates, they all kind of begin to chase away the Navy commanders, and Jack tries to free himself once he gets a sword, but he accidentally cuts the rope holding the noose, and it sends him flying up to the rafters, where there's this Navy soldier up there waiting for him. And once Jack frees himself from the noose, we have this really cool battle, sword fight between Jack and this soldier up on this rafter, which is actually moving. So it kind of like rotates and swivels. In two places. So there's one first part that kind of moves, and then this larger piece actually starts moving too. So it's a really cool, dynamic, moving sword fight. Very, very cool. It moves back into place. Like, it actually moves entirely around. It's really cool. But Jack pushes this Navy soldier off into the depths of the stage. And they kind of pull the sail down, and Jack kind of jumps onto the sail and slides down it like a slide, which I think is also a really cool move. But at this point, we're kind of now into more of the actual climax of this, where we're actually getting more of the stunts. So Jack engages this commander in a sword fight, and they're kind of projected onto the sail in the background, so you can see their shadows fighting as well, which is really cool. But once that fight breaks out, the rest of the pirates begin to fight the other Navy soldiers. So we got this really great big sword fight happening right now. And of course, the music as well in this stunt show is pretty much like a greatest hits version of like Pirates of the Caribbean soundtracks. Like, it just kind of like keeps going between like kind of the best hits, like the best like action like pieces. So you have like stuff from like Curse of Black Pearl, then you have stuff from Outworld's End, then you have stuff from Monster of Tides. Pretty much a greatest hits. But it's very cool. There is this cool effect where one of the soldiers shoots a barrel on the side of the room, and it starts kind of like leaking rum, and Jack kind of fills up a mug. But it's pretty cool so far. But once everyone seems to disappear, Jack kind of tries to walk away with some of this treasure, but he is stopped once again by the same Navy commander, who is still alive. But at this point, there is this ginormous hurricane that is literally heading this way. So you can see it in the background, like through the holes on the backdrop. So kind of you're seeing the outside, but you can see for the past few minutes, you can see this storm brewing in the background. And it finally touches down and starts heading for the theater. And now it's getting pretty close. The lights begin to kind of go out in the theater once the hurricane actually hits, engulfs the entire theater. And there's this really cool effect here where Jack jumps in, and he's actually swept up inside the hurricane, like flying in midair. And then the Navy commander's also in there, and there's this really cool effect where they're kind of like blowing away, but Jack's holding onto the rigging. It's really, really cool. But Jack ends up jumping up and making his way onto this like mast in the middle of the room. He kicks this Navy commander down once he jumps off. But really cool stunts. Honestly, I like this whole part. But one of the pirates shoots off a cannon, and they blow up the entire thing. And they think they killed Jack Sparrow, but thankfully they did not. He emerges safe and sound, as he always does. He emerges safe and sound with the treasure chest that he, of course, came for, and then we kind of end up with the finale here. Now that the Navy has been defeated, and we have a pretty cool ending to the show where the cast kind of sings a verse of Yo Ho, Yo Ho, Pirate's Life for Me before they all bow and leave, as of course, and that is pretty much the end of the stunt show. It is pretty cool. I think that there isn't enough stunts in it, because I feel like kind of the whole first half is pretty much just like, this is what's happening, by the way, and then once the Navy arrives halfway into the show, that's when you actually get the stunts. But it is cool. It is a fun show. I think it would be more fun for me if I knew what was going on, but it is cool to have an actual Pirates of the Caribbean stunt show. The sword fights are cool, especially the one with Jack on the rafters, I think is really neat. But yeah, I highly suggest you give it a watch on YouTube. It is a pretty cool thing just to watch through. But we're going to leave the Teatro Fandango, and we're going to move over to our next attraction, which is the Siren's Revenge. And this is a pirate ship that is anchored on the bay of Treasure Cove in the harbor. And there's a really cool story behind this pirate ship that I have not mentioned yet. So the history of Treasure Cove, I should say, is pretty interesting, to say the least. They tried to tie it in with, the actual Pirates of the Caribbean universe, but a lot of it kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere, which is usually what happens with Disney attractions that are kind of tying themselves into established universes, where things kind of don't really work as well. It's kind of weird. We'll get into that a bit more with Battle for the Sunken Treasure. As much as I love the ride, it is very interesting canon-wise. But the Siren's Revenge was originally a Spanish galleon, and we'll get more into that because there's a cool little board once we get into this ride here that actually explains this whole story. But while we walk up there, I'm watching a POV video. I'm waiting for it to get to the actual thing I'm talking about. While we're waiting for this to get there, Treasure Cove, the actual place, is apparently, lore-wise, supposed to be an overtaken Spanish town that was overtaken by Jack Sparrow and his crew, and now it's pretty much become like Tortuga in though it's become like a pirate town. So the theming is really well done. It's so cool. But let's get to this little board here where it has this called the Song of the Siren's Revenge. And pay attention because this is a very interesting story that we have here. So let's read through this. So the Song of the Siren's Revenge says, she began as La Senora de la Malaga, so that's the original name of this ship that we're on here, built in the shipyard of an archipelago. She sailed for years, serving the good Spanish crown, sinking her enemies and making them drown. When one day the captain beached his sea queen on tropical sand, after an evening of way too much drink, La Senora was stolen before the Spaniards could blink. Gibbs became captain against his best wishes when all of his men proved dumber than fishes. Though La Senora's figurehead cut waves like a knife, she reminded Gibbs too much of his wife. So Gibbs renamed her the Siren's Revenge, despite nothing rhyming besides Stonehenge. They say the ship's haunted by buccaneer tales. True, there be mysteries aplenty found in her sails. Not large nor as fast as most ships in sea foam, she's smelly and leaky, but what the heck, it's our home. Gibbs and Barbossa and Sparrow, all three, each have a place here, captains, you see. And that's the Siren's Revenge, pirate song. It might not be good, but at least it's not long. Signed, Captain Joshua Gibbs. That's the big thing at the end there. So, yeah, that's the lore behind this ship. Apparently, Gibbs is the captain of this ship, which is very, very interesting, to say the least. But let's get into the quick kind of backstory of Treasure Cove before we actually go onto the ship and explore that here. So, of course, the ship was originally named La Senora de la Malaga. Siren's Revenge was commandeered by Joshua Gibbs. And so once the British came in to try to take control of Treasure Cove, Jack and Gibbs came up with this plan to drive the British away from Treasure Cove. So while the ship's cannons would bombard the fortress, which was Fort Snobbish in the back here, a landing party paddling a fleet of explorer canoes, that's why I brought it up, friendly stormed the shore and routed the scurvy knave Brits. That is kind of what the lore is from the Shanghai Disneyland website about the Siren's Revenge and more so Treasure Cove. But That's why I brought up the Explorer canoes a little earlier, because they tied it into the lore. But yeah, I appreciate them trying to like flesh out the lore of this place, but it's very weird because when I first learned about, oh yeah, Gibbs is the captain of this ship, I'm like, huh, since when? Like, but regardless, let's go along the Siren's Revenge and explore the ship. So there's a pretty cool ship walkthrough where you can go through a few levels of the ship. So you can go through the below deck, then there's the main deck. You can go up top and then up to where the wheel is. So some cool places, and there are some enchanted portraits in this as well, of Gibbs, Barbossa, and Jack specifically. So we're going to start by going down below deck, where there's a lot of really great theming. This is cool everything's like very well themed down here. There is that kind of enchanted portrait of Jack Sparrow. What he is saying, I'm not sure because it's in Chinese, but it's a very cool little area below deck here. There's like all kind of different stores. There is this little part here with a galley where you can actually like clink all these pots and pans. So a lot of this is like, more like geared towards children. But also in the back of here, you can go into the jail, and there's this skeleton of a pirate who is currently locked in the jail cell. Unfortunate for him. There is also a galley where you can see a bunch of different ingredients. There is also an octopus tentacle as well. A lot of weird different ingredients. But we'll head back up to the main deck where you can kind of fire off these cannons. Not really, but you can imagine you're firing off the cannons. But we go into the treasure hold. But before we get into there is a map room. And in this map room, there is a kind of Malkoon map-esque map on this table where you can like spin the circles in it. Like it's pretty much like a copy of the Malkoon, but it's not as cool. But it has like the Fountain of Youth on it. It has some like different Pirates of the Caribbean landmarks on it, which is cool. But why not just use the regular Malkoon? Why make a weird copy? Anyway, we go into the ship's hold, which has a whole big treasure room. There is also a enchanted portrait of Barbossa here as well. That's pretty much it for this part of the ship. We go up to the captain's cabin, where there is an enchanted portrait of Gibbs. And then inside the captain's cabin, it is pretty cool. You can also see Jack's hat on the chair in the cabin as well. You can also go up to the top. You can kind of go on the wheel and spin the wheel as well. But most of this is pretty much geared towards children. But it's still cool to kind of explore the pirate ship and all that. So it is neat. It's very cool. The lore is interesting, to say the least. But yeah, apparently Gibbs is the captain of this ship. So Gibbs is Captain Josh Gibbs. It's just weird because like when did he ever have time to be captain of this ship? I don't know. Like, I appreciate them trying to tie in the lore and everything, but it is confusing just because Pirates of the Caribbean in itself is so confusing at some points that like, yeah, but let's move on past the Siren's Revenge. So we're going to head over next to another food location. And this food location is called Pintel and Righetti's Grub to Grab. So there's not much to talk about with this one either. It's pretty similar to Tortuga Treats in that it's just a quick service counter. You go up to the counter, you get your food, and you walk away. So it's not a restaurant. It's just pretty much same thing as Tortuga Treats, but it's just inside the actual kind of town square part of Treasure Cove, which we're now in, by the way. But don't despair about not getting a Pirates of the Caribbean restaurant, because that's where we're heading next. Because right past Pintel and Righetti's Grub to Grab, we have the actual restaurant, which is called Barbossa's Bounty. And this is probably one of my favorite parts of all of Treasure Cove. It's very similar to the Blue Bayou in Disneyland and Captain Jack's in Disneyland Paris. If you listened to the episodes where I covered those, that restaurant is something where you can eat and also watch the beginning of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. So this is very similar in that you also have a part where you can go in there and see the ride while you're eating. So we move past Pintel and Rigetti's to go into Barbossa's Bounty. And this is a very cool restaurant. It's not a sit-down restaurant. Blue Bayou in Disneyland and Captain Jack's in Disneyland Paris are both like sit-down restaurants. You have to get like a reservation. But this is actually just a quick service restaurant. So if you have not been to a Disney park, quick service restaurants are where you can go up, you just get your food, and you can just sit down anywhere. So you don't need a reservation. It's it's pretty much just basic food. It's not like you're getting gourmet food and everything. It's a pretty stereotypical go get your food and then you just sit down anywhere you want. But it's a very big restaurant. So in the main area where you go to order and pick up your food, there is this pirate code that's on the wall here. So let's go through that really quick. So the first thing on here is captured prizes to be divided thusly. So the captain gets 2 full shares. First mate, quartermaster gets 1.5 share. Bosun, Cooper, and ship's surgeon get 1 1/4 share. Regular pirates get 1 share. One-legged and one-eyed pirates and musicians get 1/2 share. So unfortunate for you, one-legged and one-eyed pirates. Being disabled gets you less money on this pirate ship, unfortunately. Rule number 2 is if you defraud the company, marooning shall be the punishment. Number 3 is no cheating at cards or dice. Number 4 is candles to be put out at 8 o'clock nightly. If there be crew still desiring drink, they must do so on the open deck. Number 5 is pieces, pistols, and cutlasses must be clean and ready for service at all times. And there's this really cool, the next one, number 6, says no women allowed on deck. And the cool thing about this is it's crossed out. And there is initials next to this rule that's been crossed out that say ES, which is very cool, standing for Elizabeth Swann. And we'll come to see something regarding Elizabeth very soon, so get ready for that. But I like that cool little detail there. Number 7 is desertion is punishable by death or marooning. Number 8 is no fighting on board. Quarrels will be settled on shore by pistol or cutlass. Number 9 is there be no talk of breaking up the company until each man has $1,000. Number 10 is musicians shall rest on the Sabbath. And then number 11 is the final one, and it says trust Jack Sparrow only as far as you can throw him. Which is kind of funny. But once we leave the main area here where you go and order your food, you go into the actual area where you can sit down. And this is probably one of the biggest restaurants. I don't know if it's it probably is the biggest in Shanghai Disneyland. Probably one of the biggest in a Disney park too, because there's so many different rooms you can sit in this restaurant. But the cool thing here is that the main area where you get your food is supposed to be the building. And when you go out to go to get the table inside this restaurant, you're actually going out to like a nighttime Treasure Cove. And you're pretty much going and sitting down in different little buildings and areas along the streets of Treasure Cove. So you're pretty much going into a back alley outside. So when you go out of this main room, if you look up to the ceiling, it is supposed to be the night sky. It's really, really cool theming. And it blends in with the beginning of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride here, which we'll get to in a second. But we come out and there's all different buildings you can go into, all the different rooms that you can eat. So I just think it's a really cool concept. I think they've really executed this really well. So there's so many different buildings / rooms you can eat in here There's all cool different pirate details and plenty of like different like pieces of lore and all kinds of things. But this first building that this video is walking through is kind of like a tavern area. There's a whole bunch of like barrels and like different like rum stores and all kinds of things in here. It's very well themed, and each different room slash building you go in is completely different, and it's supposed to be like you're just walking through a town back here, which is it really works. Like it's so well themed. But we're gonna move into the next room here, where there's also a ton of portraits of real pirates throughout these rooms, and there also are portraits of Pirates of the Caribbean characters. So in this blue building, there are portraits of Davy Jones and Blackbeard. And there also is one between those two, which is really cool. I think it's really neat. It is a portrait of all the pirate lords, and it's not like some of the portraits in here are like pictures, like promo pictures of the cast that were kind of like superimposed on like backgrounds to make them look like their portraits. This one though is really cool because it's an actual original, like someone actually like painted this, or I guess drew it. But it's really cool. It has all the pirate lords: Mistress Ching, Sri Sambaji, Gentleman Jocard, Jack Sparrow, Barbossa's in it, Capitan Cheval, Villanueva, and Amand are in here, as well as Elizabeth is in it too. But the one thing that bugs me about this portrait is that Elizabeth is wearing the outfit that she wears after they leave Singapore and at World's End. So the outfit she's in, during the Davy Jones locker sequence of the movie, which is really weird because this would have been like painted, like in universe, this would have been painted after she became a pirate lord. Therefore, why is she wearing this? And why is she in the exact same pose that one of the promo pictures is? Yeah. But nonetheless, despite that continuity error, it is pretty cool. And to see them all together here, especially with Elizabeth too, I think it's pretty cool. But since this portrait of Blackbeard is in here too, that makes me think that Treasure Cove, at least all of this kind of stuff, takes place after On Street of Tides. Therefore, maybe all of this takes place after Dead Men Tell No Tales even. It opened in 2016, which is before Dead Men Tell No Tales even came out, so it is iffy as to where all this stuff falls in the timeline. But the really cool portion of this restaurant is in the back. So if you go all the way to the back, there is this open kind of, patio area. Of course, you're still in the restaurant, but it's supposed to be like you're outside. And this is kind of the part where you're in the Blue Bayou, where you can actually see the beginning of Battle for the Sunken Treasure. So you have the same thing where you have that quick float through. So like in Disneyland, you have that float through where you can see the restaurant on your right. Same thing in Disneyland Paris. And you can also experience that here at Shanghai Disneyland. So it's really, really cool. You can see people passing by in the boats. The people in the boats can see you eating in this one area, which I think is really, really cool. But different from Paris and Disneyland, though, is that Barbossa's Bounty is a quick service and not a table service restaurant. And also, it is way bigger, and it's not all just supposed to be outside, So there's all different buildings you can walk through. So different in that regard. Blue Bayou and Captain Jack's are all kind of supposed to be outside next to the ride, whereas Barbossa's Bounty is more so you're perusing the streets and the alleys of Treasure Cove. But it's just really cool how every different like building slash room in this restaurant, they're all themed differently. Like one is themed after kind of the tavern, as I said. This other one, it's themed after kind of like charts, and all kinds of different like nautical tools are in there. Each one is just themed differently. It's very cool. And there is this section in the middle where it kind of looks like an outside. I don't know what the word for it is. Kind of like a little like courtyard. Courtyard. That's the word I'm looking for. Courtyard. It's a little courtyard in the middle too, which is kind of cool. But there is this room that this video is in right now, which is very cool. that has some portraits of Barbossa and Josh Gibbs. And there is something here that also intrigues me, where there is a dartboard on the wall in this room that has the names under it, Blackbeard and Jack Sparrow, with their scores under it. So this also makes no sense, as in why would Blackbeard also be here with Jack Sparrow, when as Jack Sparrow didn't know Blackbeard until the events of Monster Tides, and then also Blackbeard died at the end of Monster Tides. So this makes no sense, but cool. It's cool that it's here anyway. There also is in this room a portrait of Jack Sparrow, which is actually really cool. It's him kind of just like in this treasure cave. A lot of these portraits are actually really, really well done. And there is this room as well, which is kind of themed to like lady pirates. So there's a portrait of Anne Bonny in here, as well as a portrait of Angelica, Mistress Ching. The picture of Mistress Ching is literally a promotion, it's literally a still from At World's End that they just kind of cropped down, which I think is just hilarious. The portrait of Angelica is also like just an image of her that's kind of just edited to make it look like a portrait. But there also is one of Elizabeth in here, which is an actual portrait. It's not like some like picture it's made to be looking like a portrait. It's really cool. It's her in her Dead Man's Chest pirate outfit, which also kind of makes me wonder when is this taking place. But it's cool she's in here. One of the only references to Elizabeth in this whole entire area, unfortunately. But that's pretty much all of Barbossa's Bounty. It's a really cool area. I just love how everything's themed in there. It's so well done. Like, I feel like Disney Imagineering, they knock it out of the park on like theming and everything. It's just, I feel like they kind of struggle so many times on trying to tie in like their new things into established universes. Like, they try to cram in so many things that reference like Pirates of the Caribbean, but like some of them that just make no sense. Like, why would Blackbeard and Jack Sparrow be having a dart game, whereas they would have never come here because Jack Sparrow only knew Blackbeard, for the events of one movie, and he died at the end of the movie. So but it is interesting, but it's really cool just to have everything themed to Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, where else can you just live and breathe Pirates of the Caribbean, for a whole day, pretty much? You could just stay here all day if you wanted to. But right next to Pinto and Righetti's Grub to Grab, I did not mention this, there is a little seating area next to it where you could eat. But there is this cool little gazebo in the middle here that has this plaque on it, which actually references Will. It actually references Will Turner, finally. The only Will Turner reference in this whole entire theme park, unfortunately. But it is like kind of like little like poem about Will. So this poem says, "Sing of Captain Will Turner, cursed to the Flying Dutchman, eternally bound, stepping upon land but once every 10 years. But if Elizabeth is devoted and her love is true, the curse shall be broken with lovers' joyous tears." Also, interesting that they say that the curse would be broken, which also is interesting because that didn't end up happening, but the curse is also something that was never elaborated on. Anyway, we're gonna just keep going because we still have a lot to cover. So after going through Barbossa's Bounty, we're gonna walk through the town square over to the Balloon Market, which is the gift shop, which is kind of attached to Fort Snobbish, which is the big gigantic fort that is in the background of this land. But the Balloon Market it's a very well-themed gift shop, I'll tell you that much. But other than that, there really isn't anything in there besides Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise. I was looking through some pictures, though, while I was preparing for this episode, and it's really, really interesting. I feel like no one else is going to understand this but me and just be wowed by this. But I was looking through pictures, I was also looking through eBay to find different like items they would potentially only sell at Shanghai Disneyland. And I found that they have, this is so weird to me. They, for some reason, at Treasure Cove, they have action figures of Pirates of the Caribbean characters, which I think is really, really cool. Here's the thing, though. The weird thing about this, I actually bought one of these. I'm not going to lie, because I was so flabbergasted when I found this out. So I'm holding right now an Elizabeth Swann action figure from Treasure Cove that I found really cheap on eBay. But the weird thing about this, it's the exact same action figure as the Disney Store Dead Man's Chest Elizabeth from 2006. It's the exact same figure down to the accessories. The box is exactly the same. Well, I mean, it's the Outworld's End Disney Store action figure box, not the Dead Man's Chest one, but like, it's the exact same action figure. And mind you, Treasure Cove didn't open until 2016. And I was going through pictures and videos, and they have the Dead Man's Chest Elizabeth, the Dead Man's Chest Will Turner, the Outworld's End Jack Sparrow, the Outworld's End Davy Jones, and the Outworld's End Barbossa action figures. And these were all the Disney Store action figures. So these are ones you could only buy at the Disney Store, which were like the 8-inch, 10-inch figures. But I find it so crazy. I was flabbergasted when I found this out. And I was looking through more pictures earlier today, and they also had these like kind of blind bag packs of like little tiny Pirates of the Caribbean like little figures. And I saw that, I'm like, oh my god, they sold those like 10 years ago in the US. I remember buying so many of those when I was a kid to get the entire like collection of them. I still have them, the entire set. And I saw a picture, I'm like, there is no way they're selling 10-year-old Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise overseas. It is so crazy to me. Yeah, anyway, tangent over. That's pretty much the balloon market. It's very well themed. There's a cool figurehead in there as well, but overall, apparently the takeaway is, if you want to get 10-year-old Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise, actually not even 10 years old, if you want to get 16-year-old Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise, just go over to Shanghai Disneyland and they can hook you up with some stuff. Which, it's so weird. I'm so flabbergasted by all of that. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to put this Treasure Cove Elizabeth action figure away, but we're going to move over to our next little area, which is the Sparrow's Nest. And the Sparrow's Nest is not an attraction, it's mainly where you would go to meet Jack Sparrow. So it's a little kind of little setup where it has kind of the backdrop of Jack Sparrow's flag, and that's where you would go to meet Jack Sparrow in the park. So that's pretty much it for the Sparrow's Nest. But we go past the Sparrow's Nest into Shipwreck Shore, which is this cool little like interactive playground for kids. There's not really much in here. We're going to briefly skim through this. The theming is really well done. But overall, it's pretty much a bunch of different things for little kids to play through. Different like little water features, a slide. There is this cool shipwrecked ship, which is called La Belle France, which is the actual name of the ship. But it's really cool. The theming's cool. There's different like things you can pull and tug and like go through the water. There's this cool little area where there's water cannons on the shipwreck, and there's also water cannons on the fort wall, so you can kind of have a water gun battle, which is really neat. But other than that, it's mainly a little playground for kids to play in. Nothing else really to talk about with that. But so we'll go past Shipwreck Shore then, and we'll move over to our final dining area, which is called Snackin' Kraken. So once again, this is also a food stall where you would go up to the counter, go up to the window, and you would get your food, and you would just walk away. So apparently Shanghai Disneyland loves food stalls, because this is the third food stall we've had in Treasure Cove alone. But it's pretty much what it is. The theming is really cool. It's right off of where Shipwreck Shore is. So it has this really cool like plaque where it has like carved wooden kraken tentacles on it, which is really neat. I should also say the full name of the place is Driftwood Derwin's Snack and Kraken, but the name that Shanghai Disneyland uses is just Snack and Kraken, but the full in-universe lore name is Driftwood Derwin's Snack and Kraken. Who is Driftwood Derwin? I don't know. But we'll go past Snack and Kraken, past our last food stall, to the final thing we have to cover for Treasure Cove, and that is the one everyone's been waiting for, I bet, which is Pirates of the Caribbean Battle for the Sunken Treasure. This is the actual dark ride, Pirates of the Caribbean ride in this park. So if you're thinking that we're going to get anything similar to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride that we have in every other theme park, just throw away those expectations right now, because this is so different. It is so cool, but also so weird in that the lore for this is really interesting. So buckle in. We're going to go through the queue first, and then we'll go through the actual ride. So as I said, Fort Snobbish is the big fort in the background, and like I said, off of the actual in-universe map, you go through the gatehouse, and the gatehouse is the queue for Battle for the Sunken Treasure. So the queue is pretty cool. The first part of it is pretty much going through the fort, but inside there's some different little cool show scenes of different like rooms in the fort. And there is this one area, the map room, where you can actually see on the shelf the dead man's chest. Why is the dead man's chest there? I have no idea. But it is cool to see anyway. But once you get through the queue, we get on the boat, and it's time to actually embark on our journey to find the sunken treasure. So let's go. So once we get on the boat, of course, it's time to actually embark on our voyage to experience this Pirates of the Caribbean ride. So the beginning of this ride, the first thing we see is, of course, the talking skull, Captain X. And right when we pass right under him, we don't go through a waterfall. We go out to Barbossa's Bounty. So we have the pretty cool exterior area here. We're still inside, of course, but it's made to look like you're outside, and you can see people over there eating in Barbossa's Bounty on the right, and they can also see you in the boat. So I love how they have that in this ride. It's very, very cool. But we're going to go into the skeleton cave area. So, of course, you can't have a Pirates of the Caribbean ride without having the skeleton caves, the haunted caverns, whatever you want to call them. But the cool thing about this one is that it's completely different. There is all new little like show scenes for this area. So there's the first one we come in contact with is this pirate who is stabbed in the chest against a pole, kind of referencing the one from the original attraction, and he's also stabbing another pirate in the back. So it's kind of like if you took two of the pirates from the original skeleton caves and just put them together into one. There is a bridge that you go under with this dead skeleton pirate just laying on top of it. And there is this really cool show scene on the left once we go through, which is like a meeting of a bunch of different pirates. So there's like 5 pirate skeletons around this table. This is really, really cool, elaborate like meeting room they're in. And then on the right side, we have a skeleton version of the jail scene with the pirates trying to get the dog with the key to give them the key. And as you can see in this version, the dog is a skeleton, as well as the pirates in the jail cell are also skeletons. So very cool, different way to kind of interpret that scene. I think it's really cool. But once we go through that scene, we go deeper into the caverns. No more skeletons now. So we're like very dark, deep into the caverns, and we come across this shipwreck inside of the caves here, where we see a skeleton who is standing at the helm. And you may think, oh, we're getting a helmsman scene? Sort of. But the lightning flashes in the back of the scene, and the skeleton that you see transforms right in front of your eyes into Jack Sparrow, a moving Jack Sparrow animatronic. It's a really, really cool effect. Like, it is so cool. It's probably one of the coolest effects that I've ever seen in a Disney ride. Like, it is mind-bogglingly awesome. Like, just see Jack Sparrow transform right in front of your eyes. It's so cool. But of course, all the dialogue in this ride is also in Chinese, so we're going to be pretty much kind of skimming along here and kind of getting the gist of what is happening. But the main thing is that Jack is recruiting you and the rest of the people in your boat to join his crew and steal Davy Jones's Sunken Treasure. That's why it's called the Battle for the Sunken Treasure. But Jack sends you down, and you plunge down into the depths of the sea. There's this really cool effect that makes it look like you're sinking down into the water. And then your boat turns around, and there is this ginormous screen in front of you. And I should preface this with saying, I don't like screens in rides. I think having practical stuff is way better, but this ride is the only ride that I will say screens are amazing, because your boat turns around. There's this amazing, like, you're going down into the abyss of the sea. The music that plays in this, as well as like some music from At World's End, it's such a good like shot. Like, oh my god. And it's also interesting that you see the Flying Dutchman in the middle, right? That's the big thing you see. But there's also a bunch of other Flying Dutchman-esque ships in this like kind of graveyard, which is really weird. I don't know why there would be more than one Flying Dutchman. But when you go throughout the scene, you can see a bunch of kind of Dutchman crew members along the ocean floor here. There is this one who accidentally wakes up the Kraken, and the Kraken's right there on the screen, and it moves in front of you. This like whole screen, it's really, really convincing. Like, even though you can see the seam between the bottom of the screen and the water, it is so cool. Like, it's such a great effect. But you go into one of the shipwrecks, and you can actually see another screen in the back where you can see the Kraken continue to swim over. But you make your way through this little shipwreck, and we come out into this really great show scene where you can see the Flying Dutchman in the background, and all of this kind of like sunken ship like debris all over the place. And it just looks really convincing because you have like light rays. There's like rays of light coming through that make it look like you're under the ocean. It looks so good. Like, it's amazing. But you come out to this one area here, and there are some mermaids that are floating on the left side of the ride, which I think is cool to tie in the mermaids as well. They look pretty similar to the On Street of Tides mermaids, but they look a little different. But then we have this one little gag with these two guys in like the stocks. They're right next to each other arguing. But once we pass them, we come into this big area right under the Flying Dutchman that has all of this sunken treasure, which is the Sunken Treasure. But it's really cool. You can see the Flying Dutchman, the figurehead right over you. You pass right under it. It's really cool. And once you make your way through this area, you see Macus, who comes up from under this little mound of treasure. And I can't understand what he's saying, but he begins to laugh because the boat you're in goes through the underbelly of the ship and makes its way into the captain's cabin of the Flying Dutchman. But it's also weird because, I won't even get into it. It's weird how... Never mind, I will get into it. It's weird because you immediately float into the captain's cabin. You're supposedly going into the Flying Dutchman, but you immediately go into the captain's cabin. even though you were just at the front of the ship. Let's not think about it. But we go into the captain's cabin. Davy Jones is playing the organ, but he turns around and oh my god, this animatronic is so amazing. It is so lifelike. The tentacles in Jones's like beard actually like move on their own. He's so lifelike. His movement is so fluid, and it's seriously one of the best animatronics that Disney has ever created. I mean, it's incredible. But we go through the captain's cabin. Of course, Davy Jones is now pretty angry that we're down here, so he calls up all the ships, and there's this great effect of this kind of doorway or the kind of hull of the ship kind of like disappearing, and we see this great screenshot of all these like ghost ships or Flying Dutchman ships all surfacing from the water, as well as your boat also does, and everything comes flying up to the surface. The Flying Dutchman flies out of the water and like right in front of you, even though it's on that big screen and you can see Davy Jones up there. It just looks so good, you know, despite it being a screen. And then we immediately are thrust into a ship battle between the Black Pearl and the Flying Dutchman. You can see Jack Sparrow in the window of the captain's cabin on the Black Pearl. But we go literally right between the Pearl and the Dutchman as they are literally firing back and forth. The cannons are firing literally right in front of you as you go right between them. You can see shadows of people fighting on both ships. And then the screen in the back, you can actually see like other pirate ships attacking the other Flying Dutchman ships. I don't know what to call them, so I'm just calling them Flying Dutchman ships. But we see Davy Jones again, and he kind of dematerializes on the Flying Dutchman and rematerializes in the hull of the Black Pearl. So the Black Pearl's in a pretty bad state here. It's sinking. It's been blown to bits. And we'll talk about that in a second. But we have this great fight between Jack and Davy Jones. Jack jumps onto this rowboat with some treasure on it. He blows a hole in the hull of the Black Pearl, and the water comes crashing in. It sweeps Jones away, and Jack and his boat fly out of the hole right before the Black Pearl pretty much explodes right in front of you. And you're thrust down a backwards waterfall. You go down the waterfall backwards, and you're thrust into the darkness. And you come out, and where are we? None other than back in the ruins of Fort Snobbish, where you can see Jack has unloaded all of his newfound treasure. And unfortunately, there is a curse on the treasure, and Davy Jones turns all of the treasure into algae. Which is very unfortunate for Jack Sparrow. So all the treasure turns into algae. And yeah, I think there's also another ending for this where the treasure actually stays as the treasure and it doesn't turn into algae. But I don't know for sure. I've only ever seen the version of it turning into algae, but that is the end of the ride. After that, you go right back to the loading station and you get off. And I just think it's a really, really cool attraction. Like, it's amazing. But the lore implications of this is something I want to talk about real quick. Because the lore in this ride is very interesting, to say the least. First of all, I mean, we don't know when this takes place. So we don't know if Davy Jones should or should not still be alive at this time. Why is there more ships that are like the Flying Dutchman? That's also something that's really interesting to me. Because why would there be more than one ship that, you know, acts like the Flying Dutchman? It's really weird. It's never like talked about. You know, it's not a thing. The only thing that like ships like that even appear in is this ride, which is weird. But I mean, like, and then also at the end, once you come out and the ship battle ensues between the Black Pearl and the Flying Dutchman, the Black Pearl is pretty much sinking, And what does Jack do? He blows a hole in the Black Pearl and just says, "Later, dudes." He disappears, leaves the Black Pearl, and the Black Pearl explodes. Like, what? You're telling me Jack would just say deuces and just leave the Black Pearl to explode? Like, I don't know if that's in character for Jack Sparrow. Like, you could have just made this a basic pirate ship and it would be fine. But since it's literally the Black Pearl, like if you're in the ride, you can literally see it is the Black Pearl. When you come into the ship battle scene, you literally see it is the Black Pearl. Like it's not some just regular pirate ship. It is the Black Pearl, which is like, why would Jack leave the Black Pearl to just, explode and sink? That's something that just doesn't sit right with me. Yeah, is this ride canon? Definitely not. But it's cool though. It is a cool ride, but if you think about the lore too much, it just kind of makes you feel like this ride's a little but yeah, the ride is amazing. If you think about the implications too much, it is not very fun, but it's probably not canon anyway, so we don't really have to worry about that. But something just doesn't sit right with me about Jack just leaving the Black Pearl to be destroyed. But all things aside, it's a very cool ride. And very cool that it's actually based on the movies this time around. And yeah, it's a very unique take on the ride. And, just don't think about the lore too much. It's probably not canon anyway, so let's just put that aside. But that is the final thing that we had to cover from Treasure Cove. So we've pretty much gone all the way through Treasure Cove. We've covered everything there is to see, the different food areas, attractions you can go on, everything. We've covered it all. So that's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed our virtual tour of Treasure Cove at Shanghai Disneyland. I do want to get out there and experience this in person sometime in my life. I don't know when that will happen, but I would love to go here someday because it's just, you can just live and breathe Pirates of the Caribbean all day. Like, how great is that? But anyway, thank you all for listening to this episode. As I said at the beginning, this is the final episode of season 2 of the podcast. So we'll be taking about like a month and a half break before we come back and cover On Stranger Tides and Dead Men Tell No Tales. So that's what we're going to be doing for season 3. And season 4, once we have all the movies covered, we'll branch out more into maybe the books, maybe different kind of things to talk about. But thank you all for listening to this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you really enjoy this podcast, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating or review on the podcast wherever you listen to it. Helps a lot to get the podcast boosted up in the searches, easier for people to find it, and easier for more people to find podcast about Pirates of the Caribbean. So, I mean, if you have already done so, thank you so much. If you are about to do so, thank you so much. So that's going to be it for this episode. So I will see you all in season 3 of Podcast of the Caribbean, where we'll be covering On Stranger Tides to start off with. So I'll see you there as we begin our quest for the Fountain of Youth in season 3. So thank you all for listening. I'll see you next time. Podcast of the Caribbean is in no way affiliated with Disney. If you want to send me an email or a question, you can send it over to podcastofthecaribbean@gmail.com. You can also follow this podcast on Twitter at podcastpotc and over on Instagram at Podcast of the Caribbean. I post fun content, other trivia stuff over there. Make sure you go check those platforms out. But be sure to keep a weather eye on the horizon and always remember, dead men tell no tales.